All right, now, hey, Maggie Hamlin, if I'm not mistaken, she's an accounts and operations lead at Leaf Logistics, but I believe she's also based in my old stomping grounds in the Boston area. Is that true, Maggie?
Yes, that's correct.
Where are you?
I am in the South End.
Oh, not bad. All right. I used to live out in Dorchester, in the North End, and in Southie for a little bit. So and then in Hanover when I had kids, I had to move out that way before coming to Chattanooga. I love the area.
Yeah, I grew up here, so I absolutely love it.
Well, one of the things we're going to talk to today, like I have Boston in my portfolio as well as Chattanooga, we're going to talk to a portfolio approach to freight increases, services, and savings. Set the table on that one. What does that mean?
Absolutely. So ultimately, what Leaf believes in is that 90% of your freight should be planned and coordinated and scheduled ahead of time, thinking about things from a cross-shipper point of view. And so ultimately, we believe there are the right types of carriers or brokers that should be assigned to the right type of freight profile and adapted week over week rather than 6 or 12 months routing guide approach every single time.
So, Maggie, when I used to work at a brokerage doing international air shipments, every single shipment was always hot. Everything. I didn't have a non-hot pile. So in a world where everything is hot, nothing is hot, how do we differentiate what's an emergency? I think that's almost what you're talking about here too, right? Giving it to the right teams, because not everything is really critical response.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, you can use data to figure out what loads can be planned and scheduled or coordinated and what loads need to be that firefighting. This is a special snowflake load that is an issue every single time. And so by using advanced analytics, we're able to help show shippers this is where you can plan and this is what should be coordinated weeks, months, even a year in advance with the right type of carrier on the other side of that.
So what does that look like, Maggie? Let's say I'm a shipper and Leaf is doing the job, right? They're analyzing everything and they approach me. What would a conversation like that look like?
Yeah, so the conversation basically starts with this is what you can do by yourself in terms of network coordination, and this is what you can do across the transportation grid. So we believe by stitching together additional shippers within each outside of their silos, they can work together to create additional network moves, additional coordination, and reducing the empty miles. And so we really start with talking to shippers about where there's opportunity to coordinate what a portfolio approach would look like for their service levels and for their costs and how many empty miles we ultimately can reduce through coordination.
How does the past couple of years supply chains have never really been normal, but in the past couple of years, that bullwhip effect has been struck especially hard. How does this kind of approach where you're trying to plan and try to predict, but now you're in a completely different universe? How do you deal with that environment?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging environment to deal with, but if you have the base loads of your transportation portfolio planned and scheduled, then you can help with the volatility and the upsprings, and you can use other shippers that aren't experiencing as much volatility as you are to be able to say, okay, I don't have as much coming out of the Northeast, but if you're part of a grid, there's other players that are still coming out of the Northeast. So rather than being so volatile and transactional, you don't have to rely on just your own volumes. You're now relying on all the other shippers' volumes in the grid in order to coordinate and to help offset some of that volatility by locking things down into longer term contracts.
It's true. And I'm sure you'd agree with this. It's always smart to audit your tech, too. I remember an example I had from a couple years ago when I was working for a company. We were doing optimizations. We were wondering why all these empty miles kept coming up. And what had happened is whoever set up the account back in the day, they had like HQ origin as base point in there. So the routing was all messed up. So how important is it, too, to make sure that the information is right, that is sort of driving these dynamic and predictable decisions?
Yeah, it's very crucial that the information is right. And that's why we ask for regular data refreshes, because by refreshing your data on a regular basis, we can see kind of, are we learning something else? Has origin points changed? How can we make sure that we're auditing your data for accuracy? And your networks are always changing. COVID showed us that over the last 2-3 years. All of a sudden, you're not shipping directly to stores or to restaurants. You're going directly to the consumer. And so how do you handle that when it comes up and seems like it's changing constantly? We're really using a data-driven approach to make those decisions for our shippers.
Maggie, how automated do you think brokerage is going to get in the next year based on what you're seeing and as we remove a lot of these manual processes?
So I think a lot can be automated, and ultimately there's going to be some need for brokers continuing to do what they do today. There's always going to be that portion, but there's a right type of your portfolio that should be used for brokers, and then there's a right type of portfolio to be thinking about dedicated solutions or asset-based carriers. And so really taking that full portfolio approach, thinking through where do brokers really fit, but also what can be automated. And if 90% is planned and scheduled, you get rid of some of the automated or more manual things today, such as scheduling or appointment pickups, because the truck just shows up at the same time, at the same dock door, at the same location, and the driver knows what he's doing. And so by scheduling and coordinating and planning more and more, I think some of the more manual processes just inherently are eliminated.
Hey, so where can I send people to learn more about Leaf?
Absolutely. So you can come to leaflogistics.com, our website, or send me a direct email at margie.hamlin@leaflogistics.com.
Margie, thank you so much for your time. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and the Leaf team.
Thank you so much.